Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you've decided to join us for the Creative Coding Rotation Stations for the K-5 classrooms. My name is Naomi Harm. I'm a Strategic Education Manager for Wonder Workshop, and I have the most creative and lovely Angie Kaltoff with me from Minnesota. So please take a moment, introduce where you're coming in from. We'd like to get to know you, a very informal greet and meet, and let's see where all of our creative educators are coming from all over the world. I think tonight we're going to probably almost hit every single state. Don't you think, Angie?
I think so. And I'm going to guess that we have at least 5 other countries.
Wow, 5 other countries. I'm thinking so as well. I already see that some of our attendees are asking a few questions. I got many of my California and West Coast friends on, our Midwest where Angie is at, many East Coast friends as well, but also many countries. It's so great to see so many educators on. We're going to have a wonderful time this next hour, and we cannot wait to learn from all of you. So before we get started in just a minute or two, because we want to make sure that everybody can join that attendee chat, and you'll notice on that left side panel that you'll have an opportunity to add where you're from and who you are. Please feel free to share any critical insight that you would like to add to enhance the conversation, to activate more learning and conversation for all of our teacher friends that are online this evening or later this afternoon. It's always great to learn from all of you, that we can learn from your best practices or favorite websites that you use in the coding classroom, or even some expertise that you'd be willing to share that your students at K-5 have taught all of you. So do you have any other insight that you would like to add, Angie, to that?
I do. If you have any questions about how this will work, in the next few slides, we'll introduce a few features for asking questions and making sure that we're able to answer them. As we're waiting for more people to come in, I can see that there's people from North Carolina, New Hampshire. I just saw an Australia and a Canada. So Canada, you must be feeling somewhat similar weather for us here in the Midwest.
Well, I think that we're pretty much on top of the hour. So again, just as Angie had noted, we'd love to hear from you. We will be taking questions throughout, but we'll try our best to have a dedicated session at the end of the session to answer any of those questions you have and that are relevant that pop up during that time. And Derry Stevens is with us. She is our Director of Community at Wonder Workshop. She is going to be helping us with moderating the back channel chat so that we make sure we don't miss any of your very, very important questions. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Naomi Harm. I'm a Strategic Outreach Manager for Wonder Workshop. In my position, I have the privilege and honor of welcoming many teachers throughout the U.S. into the wonderful world of coding. We help schools with strategic planning and leading a strategic planning roadmap in order to help implement coding best practices into everything that you do. So it's not taught as a separate entity, but so children can really see that it fits into science, technology, engineering, mathematics, literacy, language arts, and even foreign language. And Angie, I'd like you to provide an introduction of all the great things that you do.
Yes, my name is Angie Kaltoff. I am a technology integrationist in central Minnesota. In addition to working with students and teachers during the day, I get to facilitate workshops for code.org for the CS Fundamentals courses, so grades K-5. In addition to doing that, I've been using many robots and coding platforms with students, and I'll share tonight with you some of the ways that we're doing that in our classrooms and some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way by co-teaching and implementing and planning.
Okay, thanks, Angie. Let's get started because I know we only have an hour, so we better make sure we maximize our time with all these amazing teachers that are here with us tonight. Some other things that we wanted to share with you, even to extend the learning of this webinar tonight, we will also direct you to go to edweb.net/code. And that's kind of where the coding and robotics K-8 focus is stored. All of our resources will be there for you, including our slide deck, including a multitude of resources, but also some great creative conversations that will be taking place throughout this webinar and beyond. So great strategies will be shared on more rotation stations that will be shared there, but additional free resources and some really great discussions that each of you that I know could contribute to as well. This is where also that you'll link to get those resources so that if you need to take a quiz to earn your certification for your CEUs, that's where you'll go to reach out for that particular area. Your certificate also will be addressed by the EdWeb team, and if you have further questions, they will be helping you with that. And if you need those certifications, it will be also stored to activate that quiz at edweb.net/code. Again, we've done a brief introduction of who we are, but we want to get started on the content. So let's come along for this creative journey over this next hour. Again, we are addressing creative coding rotation stations for the K-5 classrooms. My background also has provided me an opportunity because I have been a K-8 classroom teacher as long as what Angie is as well, and really specializing in that elementary classroom. So we're extremely passionate about introducing this topic to you tonight. We also are very thankful for our sponsors for this workshop tonight by Wonder Workshop, and you can find them at www.makewonder.com. We also have some great incentives for you tonight of Y, Dash, Dot, and Q, and even new accessory of Puzzlets can really enrich the practice of teaching of the practice of coding in your classroom, but helping you as a teacher to improve your instructional approaches with your students. Once again, it's Naomi and Angie, and we are here to have a great time. So they want to make sure that they know, you know who we are, because we'd love to have a great conversation after the fact tonight of this. Okay, we've already mentioned some of you already of where you are from. If you haven't, please let us know, because I see some of you have just joined us. Now others, we want to know, what is your role in education? So if you haven't shared that already, we'll make some great learning connections, because I know I've got some kindergarten teachers, first grade, second grade. I've got K-5 coding teachers. I also have integration specialists. I see I've got gifted and talented teachers on. Look, I've got distance education. Angie, look at all these background teachers coming in. Look at this. This is amazing.
STEM teachers, and I see librarians, and I see digital K-12 teachers. So I see that we have people in here joining us that aren't necessarily just K-5.
This is awesome, because you know what? A lot of these ideas we're going to share with you tonight, between Angie and I, we've used these with teachers all the way through high school. So there's easy modification and adaptions that you can use. So again, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us tonight, teacher friends. We're glad that you're here with us. Angie, could you address this particular question to get our teachers engaged?
Yes, so we have a lot of wonderful things that we're excited to talk to you about tonight, but we're also wanting to know what you're hoping to take away from this webinar. If you can add that into the attendee chat, and if we're able to see it, we will make sure that we talk about it if we're able to see it in here. And if you add something in here that we aren't able to talk about right away, make sure that you add it as a question, and Dari will be able to help us. In addition, you'll have our information for Twitter and for email, so you'll be able to contact us if you have more specific questions that we're not able to address tonight.
Okay, I already see some of those questions coming in, and it's a lot related to unplugged activities as well as our tech-based activities. So we have got quite a resource collection for you, teacher friends, that you're going to be quite happy with what Angie and I can provide, and give you some specific examples that have been quite successful. We are here tonight also because the importance of the why for coding, and a lot of times teachers will ask us, well, I understand how to implement some coding activities, but I just don't quite understand the why and how it really relates to a child's world. So could you help us, give us some of that background knowledge? And yes, we can. We wanted to share with you right away why the biggest importance for coding in a child's life and how it will impact them as an adult learner and futuristically as a job. But computer science is really all around us, and it relates to everything we create, make, and interact with. Everything we create, make, and interact with in our world. There are so many collections of focusing on coding creations that have really saved and helped people's lives. So it's amazing to think about what we can do right now to help people improve their quality of life. Now, some things that might relate to us right away and that can actually set the essential hook for children is, did you know that most coding of the background of creating digital animation movies is created from code? And that's one way to introduce it to children, because all children like videos. And because of that, it's like, name your favorite video. And then from that, it takes all of that coding to create this digital animation. Also, a lot of our children like music, and I love music too, but it takes an app on your computer or tablet if you're truly going to create your own creation for music. So because of that, an app is created with the whole backbone of that coding language. For us as educators, parents, grandparents, and facilitators, it takes money, right? So the money portion, all of our banking and mobile apps that we have right now, it's the backbone of coding as well. In order to streamline a process and help with productivity, it takes a code to create that solution, to create that final product, to support that efficiency. Now, as we continue on, we have a few other things. What I find really fascinating about the world of science when it comes to coding is there's a lot of things that are being created that we're not even probably realizing. But our men and women that are in the U.S. Army and many of the different branches right now is that many of them, that if they've been active military or even in that recruitment stage or they've been placed somewhere, they've been dealing with a lot of scenes from war or even some injuries. Because of that, our individuals that have suffered traumatic brain injuries, they're doing a lot of discovery within the Army right now. They're actually doing some microchips implants, not only in humans, but also I should say animals and different facets of actually plants when we talk about that too. But a TBI from a head injury, what individuals are doing right now, they're trying to understand what is the difference and how can we improve that long-term and short-term memory loss for individuals. So we're going to be seeing more coding applications that create this chip that will be implanted. The other thing when we talk about pets in general, those particular implants are also being implanted into them so that if you would lose your dog or your cat or an animal, you can have on your app on your phone that connect with that animal to know where they are. It can also decode the practice of their eating habits, their health, and their maintenance and their care. Other things we can talk about too, video conferencing apps, we all are using that tonight, but you can also have the mobile app that EdWeb has, and that takes the backbone of that coding. Other things that we're talking about, farming. Farming takes a lot of microchips right now. We've got a lettuce spot producer that we'll mention later on. There's a water sensor right now here in Napa, California that regulates the water and senses it when it's too moist or when it's too dry. And in the bottom picture, as you can see, look at the little baby. The little baby actually has a wearable technology that is actually sensing the actual temperature of that child, the heart rate, and the breathing pattern. It's all resonated back to an app that's on a parent's phone to monitor that their child is safe. A few other things, I'm going to turn it over to Angie, but when we talk about health and wellness, the whole medical practice when it comes to computer science, using robots for surgery. Actually, they're more accurate and can be more efficient and productive and precise to create a surgical incision, or it could create a whole practice of replacing a valve system in your heart, actually. Looking at other things, 3D printing with coding and robotics, when we talk about others that need an artificial limb or need a 3D prosthetic, that's all going that someone needs to know how to code to create that final product, to create that 3D print. Also, the little guy in the very bottom lower corner there that you can see that they created a 3D printed hand for him to have full functionality as if he would have a normal limb. Okay, Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You may have heard Naomi say the words coding and computer science. You may have also heard about computational thinking. So we're going to start right now talking about these three terms and how they relate to each other and how they're different. So when you think of coding, think of it as the practice of developing a set of instructions that a computer can understand and execute. So think about this as a technical skill. When you think of computer science, think of it as the study of computers and algorithmic processes, including their principles, their hardware and software, designs and their applications, and their impact on society. So think of computer science as an academic discipline. And when you think of computational thinking, think of it as a way to solve problems, to design systems, understand human behavior that draws on concepts fundamental to computer science, and that it's a fundamental skill for everyone, not just computer scientists. So think of computational thinking as a problem-solving process, and that it can be applied more directly to everything, not just learning about computer science. One of my favorite resources for learning about computational thinking is from Barefoot EDU, and on the screen you'll see an image that explains the concepts and approaches that we'll go over tonight. The report just put out by Digital Promise on computational thinking in a computational world is where it was really broken down how coding, computer science, and computational thinking have a relationship between each other. And like Naomi said before, all of our links from this webinar tonight are on the Google Doc that are getting posted in the chat. So that's where you'll be able to access that whole report that explains how computational thinking, computer science, and coding all have a relationship. So, there we go. So I used to teach kindergarten to students who are new to the country. And when I think about my kindergartners, I think about the play that they did in the classroom, how they would pretend to be doctors and teachers. And so what I want to stress tonight is that we need to bring these early learning experiences to our students at a young age, because how can they aspire for a job that they don't yet know exists? Research in the field also shows that if a student hears that they are good at this, computer science or coding, they're more likely to be interested and go into it. And we all know as teachers that we can start to see stereotypes forming at a young age. By the time students are in high school, when it's time to start planning their classes and thinking about college, of the students who were surveyed, asking them if they know what computer science majors learn, only 80% of them didn't have an answer. They didn't know what it was. And 20% thought they knew what it was, but only 10 actually knew. So we need to bring these experiences in at a young age. One of the great resources I use for learning more about careers in code is a magazine called Careers Who Code. And it's a website that you're able to access. You can also have a magazine, a printed copy sent to you. But there are also many resources for teachers to use in their classroom. And again, these resources are all available to you on our Google Doc that we're sharing. One book that I just finished reading from Marina Bears is called Designing Digital Experiences for Positive Youth Development. In it, she talks about experiences for children with technology and the situations that they're in. Are they in a situation where they're similar to a playpen, where it's a very restricted environment, there aren't a lot of areas for them to be creative? Or are they in a situation where it's like a playground, where they're out, they're learning, they're persevering, they're building their leadership skills and creating? So when I think about experiences in classrooms, this is where my mind goes. Are we using apps that are just very basic skill-based apps, or are we using apps where we're allowing our students to be creative and empowering them to create anything they want? In her book, she also talks about a situation that Mitch Resnick talks about, where if you give students a stereo, they're going to be happy for that time. They're going to get instant gratification and listen to music. But if you teach them how to play a piano, it's a lifelong skill that they'll develop, and it could be a love for music that they'll be able to have over their lifetime. She also mentions technological literacy and technological fluency, which was talked about by Seymour Papert, and how when our students first start learning, they're learning about skills and basic applications, and that's great, but it's not enough. We need to move them further into an environment where they can be problem solvers, where they can think, where they can create and explore. And I'm going to pass it back to Naomi.
Okay, thank you so much, Angie. Wow, wasn't that fascinating, all the information that Angie provided for us, and the background context, how important it is for our littles or our youngers to get started and how it relates to them, even from that tactile and sensory age. Okay, I find this truly fascinating. So thank you so much, Angie. Our next section, we're going to be looking at planning and setting up and the how to design effective, creative coding rotation stations. So we have lots of ideas. Now we know we have too many, almost too many for you, but your hope and practice for tonight is that just choose one or two and try tomorrow in your classroom. We do not want you to be overwhelmed, but we want you to take away one or two ideas that you can try to inspire the learning within your classroom to get kids interested and engaged in coding activities. So Angie's also going to be introducing in this next section that we'll be addressing the importance of using the common language when we talked about plugged activities, meaning technology in general, and as we could be using a tablet device or a web-based browser with using a laptop or a full functioning computer. But we'll also be talking about unplugged activities, meaning it doesn't take any technology at all. And I know I've had some teacher friends in the back channel chat that said, yes, I'm looking for some of that because we have limited Wi-Fi or connectivity at school. But the fascinating part, we're going to do a blend of those by offering what you can do to enhance the learning with robotics in the classroom with a variety of tools to get the job done. So Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you if you'd like to add anything to this page or to the next. Okay.
I'm going to just jump right in and share with you how we bring this into our classrooms. So here's an example of how we bring coding, computer science, and computational thinking into our primary rooms. On the right side of the screen, you'll see some standards that are covered in this unit. So for this classroom, we started by reading the book Rosie Revere Engineer. And I was very grateful to work with a wonderful kindergarten teacher and co-teach this unit with her. She read the book ahead of time, and she made little notes for me inside of the book with what she thought kindergartners would be able to take away from each page. So we made sure that we were able to talk about how it feels to create something, feelings when other people laugh at your creation, how to persevere through that, also how to share your creations and how to continue on. So we read Rosie Revere Engineer. Then we all decided we were going to be engineers. And using the robot that we use in kindergarten, the Kibo robot, created from KinderLab Robotics, which you can see in the image here, students were able to create their own code to program their own robot. Then they built with Legos and they built up on top of their Legos. So before putting the Legos on Kibo, they scanned the different codes and then Kibo performed them. So while we were doing this, we were covering different standards that kindergarten teachers were doing in their classrooms, but we were taking it to the next level and we were being engineers. So now when we look at upper elementary school, so grades 3 through 5, think about those. Here are the standards that we were covering in this unit. Our students were reading the books, If You Give a Mouse a Muffin, If You Give a Mouse, or If You Give a Moose a Muffin, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, If You Give a Pig a Pancake. And we ended with, If You Give a Mouse an iPhone. And in this story, the mouse gets this iPhone, goes through a series of events, and doesn't realize what the mouse is doing. We talk about cause and effect, and students write this out. Then they sequence the events, and they use their Ozobot robot, which has sensors on the bottom, to read lines in different color combinations. And they match the reactions or the actions of their Ozobot with different areas of the story. Then to bring it even further, students were able to write their own ending of the story and create their own map. The Ozobot acted that out, and then our connection with our art teacher was they were able to do some 3D art and create a costume for their Ozobot. So again, you can hear how the students were coding, but they were really computational thinking. They were doing different concepts and approaches in the classroom, but we were connecting it right into what they were doing with language arts and math. So while we do this, you might be wondering, well, how many robots are you using? Or how many iPads are you using? What we really encourage is pair programming. So almost every activity we do, we have at least 2 students using one device. Code.org has a great YouTube video that you can share in your classroom about how to be a driver and a navigator. It shares how students have to switch roles often. In our school that I work with, one of our media specialists and tech integrationists created these great lanyards that students wear so they know when their job is to be the driver and when their job is to be the navigator. It was a great physical thing that they could wear so that as a teacher, I could help remind them what their job was too if needed. When doing some research on pair programming, I found some great facts about pair programming in the field, how it increases confidence and people enjoy their work more and there are fewer defects. And at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see how we took pair programming even further when we were using one Dash robot and one iPad, but we had groups of 5 students. And that was in a second grade class. So not only were our students learning about their computational thinking and how to work together, but we also turned it into a math lesson with measuring. So a few tips that I have from being in the classroom with this are you need to set your expectations. So even if you don't know everything about your robots or your coding platforms, it's okay. You get to set the expectation for the classroom. What should it look like? What should it sound like? What should it feel like? If there's a new device, show the new device. Ask the students, how should we use this? What do you think would happen if? What do you think we should do if? I typically start whole group and then we break into smaller groups. In the top image, you'll see that there are groups of students, pair programming, using devices that are reflected onto my teacher screen. I use an app called Reflector Teacher, which allows students' iPads to be on my computer screen. So if I'm a teacher and I have 4 stations in my classroom, and I'm leading a guided reading station, my students are able to be independent on their iPads, and I can see what's going on their screen and know if I need to jump in and help or if somebody gets stuck from where I'm sitting in my room. A few more teacher tips. When planning these lessons, I always think of TPAC. So I like to co-plan with my classroom teachers. They have that content knowledge. We both have pedagogy, and I typically bring in that technology knowledge. We think about where we are in the classroom right now and how we can move up the SAMR model, how we can move to redefining what our classrooms are looking like. If you're new to ISTE, there are ISTE standards for students that help you guide how you plan your lessons. And one of these standards is being a computational thinker, which ties in exactly to what we're thinking about tonight. I co-teach as often as possible, and then we empower our students to be teachers. So in the lower left corner, you'll see our students teaching each other how to use the Kano operating system. Raspberry Pi was something new to me, and I didn't want to make it so that our students couldn't use it just because it was new to me. So I worked through it with a few of our students, and they became the teachers to teach students in other classrooms. Also know that there will be noise and there will be movement. This is learning, and this is great. GoNoodle is a great resource that you can use for brain breaks to get kids moving and refocused. And also know that there are people and places that want to help you connect with experts outside of your classroom. Code.org has a place on their website where you can find experts in the field and invite them into your classrooms. And I'm passing it back to Naomi.
Okay, thank you so much, Angie. Wow, the quality resources that you shared, and what a great job of introducing them to the teachers of what the possibilities and the what ifs. I really like those statements that you included. But what I really liked is that you had Common Core aligned lessons, and that's what the teachers were also chatting about in the back channel chat. Derry, thank you so much for supplementing some of those extensions and cross-curricular activities, because we had a teacher friend said, are there also ELA lessons that are associated, especially with the Wonder Workshop lessons? And absolutely. And I know Angie as well, what she had mentioned, we're not teaching just for one subject at a time. It's really a multidisciplinary approach so that kids have a meaningful learning experience when it comes to coding, relating to their world, and also a better understanding with cross-curricular development. More tips that I'm going to share with you from a teacher that I've used, but also have incorporated when I've actually been with Angie and other kinds of learning scenarios. I like to have a little bit of structure at times when I'm working with the kids because it can get a little chaotic, but positive structure also sets up for success in your classroom. I like to use different transitional timers according when I'm setting the stage for learning with clear rotation stations. Meaning by clear is that when we set up rotation stations, we make sure that each child in that class has the opportunity to experience each and every one of those stations. So we respect time. So I'll use a simple timer such as Steepit. It's STEEP.IT. I learned about this from my wonderful South African teachers that I have been working with the last 6 years. And this is a coding timer that gets set up that when you can set it according to the many minutes that you want to use. Usually the coding stations that I set up are anywhere from 10, 12, or 15 minutes each. But you set this timer up and it starts out like a good cup of tea with a boiling cup of water. It's clear, but at the end of that 10, 12, or 15 minutes, it counts down as a digital timer, but then it darkens. So the color represents that the tea is done, and the children know that their time is almost done with that learning rotation station. It helps children be accountable for their time. It helps for self-management, but it also allows for me as a teacher to be a true facilitator, to get around to each and every group to monitor my time. Now, some other things that I like to use, sometimes I need the tangibility of a timer. The other two timers that I'm going to showcase there's the little bird, and the little bird is actually that you can take it and turn it, and it's got a little ticking noise, and then it has a little bell or a ringer. Sometimes that tone is more appropriate for your class that you're using, but some type of symbolism is important so the children know that they can manage their time to get through all those stations. The cube, also the blocks at the very bottom, are good that you can actually take to set, and anytime that you rotate that cube and the face is up on that side, it lets you know how many minutes that you have left. That's just a good visual indicator for kids as well. But the last thing that I wanted to say about classroom management with your students, consistency is key, just like Angie said. Clear expectations and how students are to be responsible within those learning groups. Children need to be respectful, but also responsible, and holding them to the highest caliber of understanding what is expected, but how they can manage their own time. So helping them be in charge of their mannerisms. But in order for kids to really help and to check on understanding, you also should be including reflection, and more reflection prompts the better, so students can verbalize or reflectively write, or have a think, pair, share time activity to reflect with other students to showcase and to share their knowledge. I like the link that we have here. It's coming from also code.org, and we have this in our resource guide, that these are open-ended questions that really complement rotation stations to get at the heart of understanding the concepts. And when we talk about the approaches of how did they go to solve that problem, but also the computational thinking of what was their strategy, what was their pattern, how did they find a sequence in order to solve that particular problem. It helps kids really think, but gets at the heart of learning and deeper conversation of understanding of the coding concepts. A few more other strategies that I'd like to share with you as we go to our next slide is that some strategies that I've used as throughout the many years of teaching that I have had, and especially for kids, when they feel like they can own that learning, they will be more on track and on task of their time. So in that collection of pictures on the right side, those are like little badges, and I have a link for that too. I've created my own student badges before, and I actually print them out and I put them in a badge placeholder, and then we put them on a clip of a lanyard. On the front side, it's going to say what that job specific is for that child in the group, and then on the back side of the badge, it gives 2 or 3 prompts helping that child know what is her or his responsibility in the group. It instantly gives me a visual. When I come around as a facilitator, I know who's doing what, but at the same time too, each job has a responsibility, like a real job in the real world, that everybody has to contribute to be successful with getting that task done. Other types of responsibilities that are important too is empowering kids to do more. Your children are brilliant. They've come up with so many amazing ideas, and when they have an opportunity to have more choice and voice in their learning, they're more in tune to be a peer coach or a peer mentor to others to share their working knowledge. So because of that, at Wonder Workshop, we are also working on creating that Cleverbot squad opportunity for kids as peer coaches, meaning students can actually be coaches to teachers or actually coaches to other students. Students want to help lead. They want to share their knowledge, but they want students and teachers to find success. So why not invest more in our children that really love coding and really understand what it's all about and help them lead some of your sessions? You'll be very glad that you will, and that you'll have that opportunity to introduce this to them. The other thing is also Why not have students create rotation stations as a student challenge? Wonder Workshop also offers opportunities for kids to create their own student challenge cards because we have challenge card sets that are actually aligned to code.org curriculum. And it allows kids to really think about another teaching scenario that they can challenge a student to create that loop, or to create a variable, or to create that sequence. It gives them an opportunity to show what they know, but in a challenging way to work with their peers in a very positive learning environment. I also have a link for you at the bottom that's also included with more rotation station ideas of what we're working at Wonder Workshop, of how we set it up according to so many minutes, checking for understanding, and helping kids lead those sessions. Another area we'd like to share with you, just like Angie said, it's the what if statements. Those are so very important, and I'm so glad that Angie brought that up earlier. And the what ifs for students, we need to help our kids to not only be problem solvers, to be problem finders. Our kids are really discovering, hey, this is not working, so they've found a problem. But showcasing them by finding that problem, how do we solve that? How do we solve it together? When do we need maybe just some single time to work through that problem? But then really working on a design thinking strategy to iterate basically more ideas of how to solve it, but then also creating a prototype and working through that and to test it out. That's what it's all about. One other thing that we use, I tap into a lot, are community members and parents and grandparents. Yes, they could be the greatest learning assets in your classroom. And students are motivated by having guests that come in virtually or face-to-face. But we have a lot of parents helping with the coding initiative, and the parents have said, I have never been so excited as a parent to come and volunteer in a classroom. But what they're so excited about, I hear moms and dads say this at the same time. And they said, oh my gosh, I wish school was this much fun when this was happening during my age. So the parents are reliving it again and just having a great time. One of the last strategies I'd like to share with you, partner up kids so that they can have more creative and social conversations. They need to learn from their peers. Have them set up as dynamic duos or transformative trios. But better yet, have kids be partnered with even your older students. We do a lot of different techniques with high school kids mentoring middle school, and then middle school mentoring mentoring elementary children. So because of that cross-curricular approach, and even between grade levels, is helping each of your students be a peer mentor between those grades. And it's a great servant leadership project for your students. It's helping kids be active listeners, problem finders, and problem solvers, but at the same time, respecting of the different grade levels to really help each other be peer coaches along the way. Now, we're going to continue into this next section, and Angie's going to kick it off with some examples of unplugged creative coding creation stations.
Naomi, could you bring it to the next slide for me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go.
That was mine.
I'm so sorry, Angie. Okay.
Okay, so before we started talking about computational thinking and its different concepts and approaches to solving problems. So over on the right side, you'll see some different concepts, and I'm going to explain how this could look in the classroom. So in the upper left corner, there's a picture of a student creating their own maze.
So Angie is talking about creating a maze at the very top, and as you can see that she has having the children actually doing a block-based code that they're creating their own and creating an algorithm with their actual directionality arrows, that if we go left, if we go right, if we go up, and we go down. So what we're looking at is the concepts that Angie is reflecting on. And as she comes back in, we were just reflecting on just starting with the gaming component in that top right corner. So go ahead, Angie.
So in the Codable app that students use on their iPad, which is a great tool if you have early learners or new to country students or early to non-readers. As a teacher, it's really easy to set up, and as a student, it's a great way to navigate into the app with multiple classes. Students are able to create their own mazes, and we can make a codable book. In the upper right corner is one of my favorite games. It's called Robot Turtles. And as Naomi mentioned before, community members and family members, they want to know how they can help their students and what they can do at home. So a great unplugged lesson or activity is robot turtles, but you can also do this at school. You can have anywhere from 4 to 9 players. So if I have more than 4 players, I have a computer stand next to the person who gets to write the code, and then we take turns. You can build it up from very basic commands with just the arrows to adding in different distractions or different obstacles for the kids. And below is students playing with My Robotic Friend. So all of these are also linked on that Google Doc that we've been sharing in the chat. So there are lesson plans that you can see or places to go to find out more. And in My Robotic Friends, kids are teaching their robot how to create different cup stacking options using code. And again, all of these activities, I think Naomi just covered on, are using arrows. And that's how they're directing their friends with what to do. If you're thinking, okay, so this sounds great, but this sounds like a lot. As Naomi mentioned at the very beginning, try to pick 1 or 2 things. And one of my favorite places to go is code.org. So code.org has great unplugged resources, so meaning we don't have to have any technology to teach these concepts, and they have them by grade level. So if you're a kindergarten teacher, you can use course A. If you're a first grade teacher, you can use course B. If you're a second grade teacher, course C is ready for you. And these are some of the lessons that I've taught that code.org has already created and makes it really easy for me to bring into my classrooms. We use happy maps to teach students how to command their friends using arrows. Move it, move it. If you set up a big grid on the floor of your classroom and students lay out arrows, their friends are able to move through the grid, or they can use their body in different signals with their arms to tell their friends to move. And then finally, in kindergarten and first and second grade, in elementary school, we're talking a lot about life cycles. And so you can connect that to planting a seed. And the different processes and the different steps you need into planting a seed is an algorithm, a list of steps that you can follow to finish a task. All of these can be done either whole group, small group. I've done a combination of them. Sometimes we'll start out whole group and we'll move to small groups for some of the hands-on activities. So now when we look at upper elementary grades 3 through 5, again, sticking with code.org. So if this is something that you're looking to get started with, but you're thinking this is a lot of information, I don't know where to start, I'd recommend going to code.org for your unplugged lessons because 3rd grade can use course D, 4th grade can use course E, and 5th grade can use course F. Students can learn how to program and about algorithms by using graph paper, so a great tie-in to math. They can also learn about algorithms by creating paper airplanes, which is a lot of fun. They create the algorithm for their airplane and they pass it to a friend who has to follow their steps, step by step to create that algorithm. And binary is something that I don't remember learning about in elementary school, but it's one of the best lessons to bring into your classroom to help kids understand about binary by creating their very own bracelets. Using paper is one way, but also beads and washers and you can make your own bracelets that kids can take home with them. And I'll pass it back to Naomi.
Okay, thanks, Angie. So we've got about 15 minutes left of our webinar, and we're going to wrap up with some great things for you here. So to extend where Angie left, I learned about the binary code activity from Angie when I attended a Minnesota personalized learning event a few years ago. So she was such an amazing facilitator. I was fascinated what she was teaching the teachers. So I've taken it to another level where the binary code activity, we worked with a lot of our teachers in the Midwest and the West Coast this past fall, and we did binary code with colors related to a holiday affiliation. So you can see that we use green, red, and white. But what we had kids do is using that binary code, we had them create a code of a winter word or their first name. The students were fascinated because it was extremely personalized to them that, first of all, they could code their own name. But then when they coded that name, they created basically an ornament, and they used that pipe cleaner with the beads, and they had something to decorate their holiday tree in their classroom, but also had something to take home for mom and dad as a really personalized gift to represented them as a child. Now, other things we wanted to tie in, we've got some great Blockly code. A couple different levels with this. Not only can you use Blockly code within the Wonder Workshop apps as Blockly, but we took it one step further. So working with Derry Stevens, she was so kind that she's created the Blockly code for our team and with other team members. We printed those out just on cardstock paper. So you can see the children there that I'm working with within the San Francisco School District. And they really like to create their own stories. They were so animated by creating the story and putting it together. It was just amazing to watch this. But we took it to one more level. I printed these out onto magnetic printable sheets. And when we printed those out, I cut them out, and then I used cookie sheets because we talk about when you create a recipe, you're really creating an algorithm for that. So we took it to that analogy to one step further. So the kids used the metal cookie sheets with the magnetic coating blocks, and then they would snap into place right away, almost like you'd be using it with Blockly on the app. The kids really liked that strategy. Not only could we use it on that kind of horizontal surface, but we could put it on a vertical surface too, so they could work with it in two different ways. The last thing we've done are some secret coding challenge activities, how to help kids be critical thinkers and problem solvers and problem finders, with setting up different decoding strategies and helping them solve a problem when they actually have limited amount of cues, but maybe giving a digit or a number set and how to represent that according to letters and to come out with a phrase. So we've got some of those ideas already created for you that you can use tomorrow in your class, and the kids will love it. A few other things that we'd like to share with you of other coding examples. If you even do a simple search for coding unplugged activities, you will find just an amazing amount of resources. And a lot of them are generated even within Pinterest that teachers have collated together or curated. This, for instance, I have one that's a superhero coding board game. Some of the students that I've worked with this last year just love that because everything's about superheroes. So because of this, we've created like a board game that you could easily set up and that you can have a defined, like a medallion placed on that board. And then kids have to create the coding strategies using the arrow strategy of what they need to do to create basically their own algorithm. And it's worked out really well. So the kids see it as a game board. When they can actually design their own game board, that even just kicks up that lesson by 200% because the kids now have all kinds of different types of learning levels with it that they get really excited about. The one on the bottom, I was at Wisconsin Minnesota conference at this fall. We did a large floor Pac-Man size game. So what I did is I set that up just using duct tape on the floor that we were in the conference venue, and I created different shapes such as triangles, squares, and rectangles. And the strategy was that you would take the Dash robot and that you would code the path to get to the nearest shape, or the challenge was to try to get at least one triangle and one square, or to get 3 different types of shapes. So we could have many teachers on this coding activity at the time complete this task, and they loved the challenge because it was floor-based and kids could truly move around with the teachers, and they were really working on the dynamics of working with shapes and colors, patterns, and a sequence. Now we're going to continue on to examples of creating coding rotation stations, and this will be our last section of our presentation to you today.
Okay, so again, we're going to talk about computational thinking, and I'm going to explain some of the activities we've done in classrooms, and I want you to think about the approaches of what I'm talking about and see if you can type any that you hear in the chat, and we'll see how many different approaches and how they relate to your classrooms. So on the top, you'll see Bloxels, and Bloxels is a great tool to use for video game design. Using Bloxels with a tablet, you're able to take something that you're using with your fingers, a manipulative little Bloxes, and turn it into an actual game on their tablet. Now, to help elementary students think through the game that they're going to use, we typically have them write out their game ahead of time. Think about the rooms they want to create. Think about the characters they want to create. What's the storyline of the game? Can you teach somebody something? Another great tool we use is Puzzlets, and Naomi mentioned it before. I'm so excited to get Puzzlets for the Dash robot. But Puzzlets has Cork the Volcano, which is a game where you get a character through a series of challenges. But instead of bringing code on your screen, you use little puzzle pieces and put them on a cloud-like platform, and then the character on the screen will perform the actions that you've just put on that cloud-like platform. I can see some people are adding in some different approaches. Now, thinking like a mathematician. So in our stations, we're using the Bluebot here. Bluebot has a brother named the Beebot. The Bluebot connects with Bluetooth, which is why it's called the Bluebot. And in this picture, you'll see the tactile reader. So you can code on the Bluebot's back, on the tactile reader, or on an app. And we tie this in with being a mathematician. Students roll the dice, and they match up the number that they rolled, and they are able to code their Bluebot to that number. Another thing you could do is roll 2 dice and have them code the Bluebot to go to the sum of that number. You can vary this activity for your students depending on what concept you're working on, but still thinking like a mathematician. Now you'll see some students who are a little bit older and they're using the Sphero robot. On the top, our students worked in their classroom and with the art teacher to learn about splatter painting. They did some research, they created a Google slide about their research, and then they were able to code on their iPads to get their Sphero to drive through paint and they could do their painting. We have students who are new to country in our schools, and we have students who have been using iPads and Spheros for a few years, so we have a high range of abilities. And with the Sphero app, you're able to do drag and drop programming, they're able to type, and they're also able to navigate the Sphero just by dragging their finger across the screen. So it's a great tool for kids of all abilities. We also have it attached and connected with our geography lessons. So you'll see students working on a map. You'll see a Sphero on the screen where they were driving their Spheros through different areas of different states, and other kids were noting what they were going through and what they were seeing. So again, think of the different concepts and approaches from computational thinking and how what they're doing with the robot and coding applies to the standards that we teach in schools, but how we think about problems and solving. So here you'll see Scratch and Scratch Junior. And now this is very open-ended for our students. They're able to create anything they can think of. Scratch Junior is where we start on iPads, and then Scratch has to be used on your computer. Kids are able to create their own digital stories and apps. And if you're looking to get started with Scratch and Scratch Junior, we've linked some resources for you. PBS Kids has some great starter lessons. Kids can make a remix of a project that's already been started, and I'm going to do one tomorrow with Word Girl. And Scratch has some great resources on their own website, but Google has created CS First. They have different themes that you can bring into your classroom. And the last one that I did was storytelling. I didn't have to know everything about Scratch. Google had it all laid out for me and the experiences for my students. Now I'll pass it back to Naomi.
Angie, I love all those ideas. And when you had mentioned Sphero about what you were creating, kind of like the large scale story mapping that you were doing and going through that maze, I just recalled last weekend I was in Portland that we had a great big event on Tinker Code Make. And what we also did with Dash up there, the ideas that came out was creating a large floor scale diorama that the kids actually recreated the stories. They dressed up Dash and Dot to be actual characters that represent the characters in the book, and then they had to code the path. And when they got to an area, a part of that diorama, they used that recorded voice to tell out that factual statement or that important amount of that timeline, what occurred. So anything that you can do to tie in that literature, the timeline feature of history over time, and the kids dressing them up, I think that is just phenomenal. I love that you tied that in. So thanks for sharing. That just resonated, that next idea. But as we continue on, here are some other things to think differently about coding as well. Coding, as we mentioned, going back to the beginning of the webinar, is around us everywhere. And coding is a natural fit and a partnership that goes along with 3D printing. So our good friend, Velvet Holmes, and I believe she may be on this evening, she's from the Oregon School District in Wisconsin, she introduced me to Cookie Caster. Cookie Caster is a phenomenal way for children to design their own 3D printed cookie cutters. It helps children with understanding size ratio, development, and then creating something or creating it from a template and then to produce a final product, and along with that code that it takes to print out that final design. Some other choices that you can tap into are also the 3D Doodler. I know Velvet does a really nice job with teachers when I have seen working with those teachers of creating an abstract structure, basically when it comes to it, that you're designing with a 3D pen that's creating basically that print, and you draw and it creates according to a template, or you design your own free form of your design, which is phenomenal. So this is part of the robot kit that's below for 3D Doodler. And also the last one, pencil code. When Angie mentioned the CS First by Google, again, that's one of those that I absolutely adore, and it's so theme-based and personalized to children. Pencil code does the same thing and allows children to start to actually create and write their code, but also instantly see the background of understanding where they're at of what they're designing, whether they're doing a drawing, whether they're creating a music remix, or they're actually designing an image. It's phenomenal. It gives students choice, it gives them voice and high creativity, instant gratification of seeing what they're creating. So just a few more things that we wanted to share with you. And Dash and Dot activities, those of you that have been tapping into Dot has been refreshed. As you can see that we have the Dot Creativity Kit, that it comes with a whole kind of theme that you could do puppetry, you can do also kinds of creation of having the Legos, as you can see on top of his head at the bottom, but you also have him inside of an encasing thing that he can become a night light for you. But there's also design challenge cards that have been designed around now with Dot with the Wonder app. And it's so cool because I've created one around the All About Me activity, helping teachers ask more enduring questions to get kids to share about their daily lives and their friends that can work with building community. You could do heads or tails. You can do a magic 8-ball now with creating this. The kids absolutely love it. But this is all about that Dot Creativity Kit. A few other things for Dash robotic activities, and Angie's already mentioned on some of these. We've got Dashketball. So if you like to do the bowling pin activities with Dash, or you've done that with Spiro, Dashketball is here where you can code the lap and then shoot a basket, and the kids love it. But more so, my teachers that I work with cannot get enough of this. And Brian Miller was one of the first to design this activity, so I want to give him a great shout out tonight as well. Brian is our Director of Education, and he's done some phenomenal things of including everyday skills and life activities as part of the coding that is represented here. Other children that we're working with here, you can see that actually we have a child that was really working with understanding what an equilateral triangle was, with coding the tree path on the floor for the holiday activities. He wanted to get that protractor out. This is working with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. These kids were adamant about finding the precise measurements, and it was fascinating working with them and the coding language that they were showing. But lots of linked activities that we hear. Name That Tune activities with the xylophone. We worked with that activity this weekend. Kids creating and making their own songs. Just phenomenal. And again, I can't say enough about the fashion show. All the kids love to dress the robots up and to help tell that story with the coding events that take place. A few other extensions, we've done some green screening. You can get a pop-up pod from Amazon, and it can help you to extend your lessons even without that robot in place, but you can use the Do Ink or TouchCast app and helping kids extend their learning with telling their learning journey all about coding. We've got some extension resources on booklets. We also have, you can see at the bottom, another example of the life-size scale diorama of the life cycle of a butterfly. And key examples that you can find in our cross-curricular section at makewonder.com, and going into the education portal and then into the curriculum area, you can see all of the amazing lessons that are there that are multidisciplinary approaches that you can include. But better yet, how about attach the filmmaker attachment onto the top of Dash's head? Not only could you do the large-scale diorama, you could actually video record the whole event that takes place. Kids are really into the video, so why not use it to its advantage to capture those learning moments for our kiddos? Last thing, where to find more resources. Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Naomi and I put together a wonderful Google Doc with all of the links that we have been talking about. They will be on the website where you can access this recorded webinar, as well as our presentation. I saw some people in the chat asking if they'll be able to archive this chat for them because of the links, but don't worry, we organize them for you on a Google Doc. So easy to access, it's already in the community for you, and we're excited to share these resources with you. And I saw questions come up along the way. They've been popping up in the presenter area. So are we going to take a minute right now to answer those, or should we go through? It's 5 o'clock and I want to honor everyone's time. Thank you for coming and attending this with us. Real quick, we're going to show you a few more things with our wonderful hosts, Wonder Workshop and Naomi Harm. Naomi, did you want to talk about the Wonder Workshop code?
Oh, yes. Just as our closing, we couldn't forget about this. We always save the best to last, right? So we're glad that you're here yet. Those of you that have attended today, we wanted to make sure that you can tap into your future purchases for Wonder Workshop. You can use the code. It's EdWeb18, and that's in partnership with the EdWeb webinars. We're very thankful to be partnering with them to give you all of this great background knowledge on coding rotation stations. So you can use that code of EdWeb18 to get your 10% off your future purchase. And as you can see, there's many specials that are taking place right now. And going into that portal will help you at makewonder.com, going into education and into the store portal will allow for you to tap into all of those wonderful Wonder Workshop robotics curriculum ideas and also the challenge cards and all the accessories that we have. We'll pop over one more, Angie, and what we'll do, so I'm not seeing our next slide, but those that you can stay on, we can have a minute or two for some questions, but we do have some questions at the very top that we are going to tap into if I could, but it's not letting me get in there right now. So we want to thank you for your participation and for you coming to join us all this evening. We appreciate that you've shared so many ideas in the back channel chat. This will be archived for you again, as we had mentioned.
Thanks again for coming. You have our contact information in case you have questions that we weren't able to answer tonight. As they were coming up, we were answering along the way. But again, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter or through email in case there are questions that we weren't able to answer for you. We would love to answer with you and connect with you. And we'll get our emails and Twitter handles pulled up right there for you. Thank you for coming. I'm going to go back and look through this chat archive because I saw some great ideas from you along the way. So thank you for posting and sharing.
Hey, Angie, this is Derry. There are actually some questions in above. So if we want to take just a couple minutes, if people are sticking around, there were some great quandaries there.
Would you be able to read a few? It seemed I would get kicked out every time I would try to look at them.
Absolutely. So this is a great one that was asked early on by Carla, that she has received parent pushback based on this statement. Is the tech dictating what the students do, or are the students dictating what the tech does? And she was asking if you guys could help give some recommendations for framing an answer.
Yes, so at the very beginning, we shared that resource for computational thinking from Barefoot EDU. And in that, you're able to show the parents the different concepts and approaches that the students are able to do as they're building algorithms for their robots to do, or as they're building stories in Scratch Junior, their digital stories that they're using in their classrooms. Marina Bears is also a great resource. She has a lot of research out there for you on early childhood education and how technology can be used as a creation tool, and our students are creating wonderful things. Naomi, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just say, because if you can have that balanced approach with your students as well, sometimes always have that centralized focus that they think that you have to have that tablet right there. But I think when they see that not only is it a blend, that you're incorporating that importance of the literacy focus, and then also how they're using a tablet or their robot device to create that completion of that story, then the parents are going to really see that it's a blended approach and that you also have unplugged activities available at your disposal so that parents can be part of that too and send home some of those unplugged activities. I think that's where the hook's going to be. So parents understand that they also have an opportunity of a great blended approach in the home environment.
Great. And Angie, did you say her name was Marina?
B-E-R-S. Yep. And I see in the chat that Beth just added that she's from Tufts University.
Terrific. Go Jumbos. Okay, some other questions. Beth had asked, love the ideas, but how do you set up multiple stations in a 45-minute period?
So what we do in our stations are either introducing a whole group and then having smaller stations so everyone hears the directions once and that helps with time, or maybe doing 2 stations one day and then the next 2 another day. So if you have 4 stations, maybe the kids don't get to do everything on one day, but they will the next time.
And I'll
Great.
just bridge off of what she had also said too, in that instructional approach of having that timer set up to respect time and place and space. Sometimes if you can't spend 12 minutes, but maybe it's just an intro activity, have the kids rotate through every 6 or 7 minutes.
Terrific. And these are some short answer questions for you guys. Naomi, where do you find the green pop-up tent again?
Oh, the green pop-up tent. Yes, just Amazon.com. And I think they run around $30. It's a great way for kids to have and to tuck it away in the corner of a classroom that kids can actually do some green screening activities to really reiterate their learning of the coding activities, or have kids create a news story all focused around on coding and character development in the classroom.
Terrific. And then the name of the robot that you use with the kindergarten students.
Kibo, K-I-B-O. There are different models with different amounts of blocks. I've used the Kibo 18, which will give you different sensors and lights, or you can even just start with the Kibo 10, where you don't have as many options, but it's a little more affordable.
Terrific. And the last two questions I actually can answer. Beth asked, do you know of any math or literacy projects that incorporate coding? We have a cross-curricular library of lesson plans that are available for free on the Wonder Workshop website. So if you go to education.makewonder.com, you will find our curriculum tab, and that's where you can access the library of lesson plans. And we're always looking for educators to contribute too. And then Susan was asking about where you find the CEUs. You will receive an email probably by tomorrow that will give you instructions on how you can submit for CEUs. And I think that's primarily it. Great questions and great conversation going on in the sidebar the whole entire time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for your participation tonight. And I want to say again, thank you, Angie, so much for co-facilitating tonight. It's always together we're better. And we're a dynamic duo superhero team. So I couldn't have done it without you. So thanks so much. And I appreciate your effort.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to share what we're doing too.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great evening, and we will see you next time on EdWeb, and we'll have some continued EdWeb coding webinars to continue our effort, especially around rotation stations. And I'm hoping I can have Angie back that we can co-facilitate for you again.